the tax slabs for GST to just 2 from the earlier 4. Right now, the GST slabs, effective 22nd of September, will just be 2 slabs, that's 5% and 18%. Most goods will be tariffed at either of these 2 slabs at 5%. In fact, most everyday items are being tariffed at 5%, and slightly luxurious goods are being tariffed at 18%. There's also a third slab, which is the 40% for sin goods. I'll come to that in 1 second. But this is now being hailed as a good and simple tax, something that a lot of consumers have been talking about. It was leading to confusion, 4 different slabs, and finally now there's been a rate rationalization. There's also, like I said a moment ago, a sin tax at 40% on goods like tobacco and pan masala, basically anything that is addictive and habit-forming. There's also a credit war, a political credit war that is going on between the Congress and the BJP as to who gets to claim credit for this move. The BJP says Mr. Modi's government is the one which got it done. It in fact rallied the entire GST Council and finally got the rate rationalization done. The Congress, on the other hand, says it's Rahul Gandhi who's been saying this for years now. So the point is, just ahead of the Bihar elections, just ahead of festive season, who takes the political credit for GST 2.0?
Common man and middle class items mein there is a complete reduction. Reduction from 18 or from 12 to 5%. I list out those items, all of whom have come to 5% from either 18 or from 12. Reduction of GST from 5% to nil. 5 से 0 में जाने वाले items indicate कर रहा हूँ. Ultra high temperature milk, the UHT milk, chena or paneer, all the Indian breads will see nil rate. So roti kisi ke upar bhi, chapati or roti or paratha or whatever it is, they all come to nil. Reduction of GST from 12% or from 18% to 5%. इसमें food items बहुत सारे हैं, नमकीन से भुजिया है, sauces है, pasta है, instant noodles है. Exemption of GST on all individual health insurance policies, including family floater policies and policies for senior citizens, and reinsurance thereof to make insurance affordable for the common man and increase the insurance coverage in the country.
Of that announcement that medical insurance, life insurance, all has been reduced to 0% GST. Politics, though, can't be too far behind. It's now erupted over the centre's decision to cut GST rates. The opposition, including the Congress, while welcoming the step, saying it's in the right direction, they have also criticized the government, saying it's taken 8 years for the government to come to the same conclusion. The Congress party has accused the Modi government of crushing MSMEs for years with what it termed the Gabbar Singh tax. Some even question the timing of these reforms, coming as it does just ahead of the Bihar elections, all of which was responded to earlier this evening by the Prime Minister.
साथियों, कल जो निर्णय हुआ ये कितना सुखद है, इसका असली प्रभाव तब और पता चलेगा जब आप जीएसटी से पहले के टैक्स दरों को याद करेंगे. कभी-कभी क्या होता है, पता ही नहीं रहता है कि अच्छा पहले ऐसा था, और इसलिए कभी-कभी पहले की चीज याद करते हैं तब पता चलता है यहां से यहां चले गए. साथियों, साल 2014 से पहले करीब करीब हर सामान पर उस समय की जो सरकार थी, उस समय कितनी बड़ी मात्रा में टैक्स लिया जाता था पुरानी सरकार में. 2014 में मेरे आने से पहले रसोई का सामान हो या खेती किसानी से जुड़ी चीजें हो या फिर दवाइयां और यहां तक जीवन बीमा भी, ऐसी अनेक चीजों पर कांग्रेस सरकार अलग अलग टैक्स लेती थी. अगर वही दौर होता, अगर आज आप 2014 के हिसाब से होते, तो आपको 100 रुपया की अगर चीज कोई खरीदते हैं तो 20-25 रुपया टैक्स का देना पड़ता है. साथियों, कांग्रेस की सरकार ने कैसे आपका मंथली बजट बढ़ाया हुआ था, ये कोई भूल नहीं सकता है. टूथपेस्ट, साबुन, हेयर ऑयल, इन पर 27% टैक्स, आज आपको याद नहीं होगा, लेकिन आप देते थे। खाने की प्लेट, कप प्लेट, चम्मच, ऐसे सामान पर 18 से लेकर के 28% टैक्स हुआ करता था। टूथ पाउडर 17% टैक्स, यानी रोजमर्रा की ऐसी हर चीज पर उस कांग्रेस के जमाने में इतना सारा टैक्स लगता था।
If you look at the various other countries, what GST they have put, it's uniform GST. Some of them have got only 5% GST, some of them even lower. It's all uniform GST. So Government of India should think of something similar to that.
These are all rhetoric, dialogues, which we have seen in last 11 years. It has not helped the common man.
State governments have their own complaints about GST. Common people have their own complaints about GST. The GST has not helped the common people, has not helped the state governments to get their adequate share from the union government.
All right, so who takes the political credit for this? The opposition says it's come 8 years too late. Ultimately, though, it has come under the watch of the Modi government, which has initiated the entire GST Council by consensus to move in the direction of this rate rationalization. Sanju Verma is national spokesperson of the BJP. Shama Mohammed is national spokesperson of the Congress Party. Gautam Chikarmane is vice president with the Observer Research Foundation. Sanju Verma, the opposition's charge right after the announcement was made late last night by the finance minister, the opposition came out and said that, look, this has come 8 years too late. We've been talking about Gabbar Singh tax. The Modi government's taken its own sweet time in getting the GST Council to eventually do this rate rationalization, which you should have done a long time ago.
Zaka, first and foremost, let me say one thing very clearly to all those GST naysayers and Modi naysayers. सरकार भी हमारी है, सिस्टम भी हमारा है. पहले तो ये बात सुन लीजिए ध्यान से. Now let's get down to the brass tacks of it. The fact of the matter is that the Vijay Kelkar committee recommended GST way back in 2004. The Congress was in power, Zaka, for 10 long years. From 2004 to 2014, they could not implement GST. And what does the Congress now say in hindsight? They say, the BJP was never a constructive opposition. They stonewalled GST. But what the hard truth is this. The then Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Prithviraj Chavan, was one of the biggest opponents of GST, and the then Chief Minister of Haryana, Bhupinder Singh Hooda, was another very vocal critique of GST. And the then proxy government of Sonia Gandhi / Manmohan Singh completely caved into the demands of Prithviraj Chavan and Bhupinder Singh Hooda for electoral reasons. So the limited point is the BJP made it happen. The Congress kept building flaky castles in the air, Zaka. My limited point always is this. The true test of successful leadership is not what you promise, but what you deliver. The true test of leadership is not grandiose plans, but the ability to marry vision with seamless execution. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has showcased Modinomics is alive and kicking. जो कांग्रेस की सरकार 10 सालों में नहीं कर पाई, मोदी जी ने करके दिखा दिया. GST 1.0 in 2017 and GST 2.0 in 2025. Kudos to the Modi government and team.
Okay, so let me ask Dr. Shama Mohammed, all forms of basic essential food items, whether it's chapati, paratha, paneer, UHT milk, khakra, butter, ghee, cheese, jams, jelly, I can go on. The whole list has been made either to 0% or to 5%. Basic essential commodities that the common man and the common woman needs has been reduced to almost negligible GST. You should be welcoming this. You should be saying that, good, finally the government got this done. And it's the entire GST Council that got it done.
Zaka, first and foremost, the lady on the BJP spokesperson spoke about a couple of chief ministers from the Congress party. She forgot one very important chief minister, the Gujarat chief minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, who was against the GST. Let us make it very clear. She forgot to tell his name, or she didn't want to tell his name because he's the present prime minister. Number two, my question today is, my leader Rahul Gandhi in 2017 said that please see to it that we do not have multiple rates. And when the rates came in, he said it's Gabbar Singh tax. Question today arises is why was there, when the country had issues after COVID, when our GDP was going down, why did the Prime Minister of this country, the Finance Ministry, put tax on yogurt, dal, bread, all these things, rice, basic stuff? When Nirmala Sitharaman was speaking yesterday, said, oh, you know what, we have removed, as if she's done a great favor. In the first place, I want to ask her, why did she put it? She should have never put tax on that. Now let's see, feeding bottles, which you really require. There are many mothers who cannot even breastfeed. I'm a mom, I've breastfed my child. I've also given bottled milk, I know exactly. Feeding bottles were at 12%. Bicycles, the poor who cannot use a car, use bicycles. At 12%, pencils, kids who are from poor families who go to government schools, 12%. Now, yes, it's been reduced to 5%, but why at 12% in the first place? Now, let's look at the others, which is at 18%. Hair oil, shampoo, soap. These are basic things. Why was it at 18%? The other very thing which I really got upset about is cement. Cement was at 28%. Now it's gone down to 18%. Why do you put cement, which is need to build houses for the poor and the middle class? It's everybody using it. So that is what is upsetting me, is that they talk they've done some favor, and this favor is done for two reasons. One, because of the 50% tariff, and the other thing is the Bihar elections. It has nothing to do with the people of India. They don't care about the people of India. If they cared,
the finance minister was asked about this yesterday in the press conference. Let me see. It in fact was to my colleague Pallavi Ghosh's question as to did the tariffs have any role to play in this, and she categorically said no.
The truth? Do you think the finance minister of India speaks the truth? Zaka?
No, that's for the people of India to judge. That's for the people of India to judge.
No,
you or I are not the judge of it. Anyway.
It's not people of India. I'm telling you she's a liar.
No, my question to you is, she has said this has nothing to do with the tariffs. And also, think of it, okay, we have that bite. Let's play out that bite, and then I'll get both the spokespersons to respond, and I'll get Gautam also to come in on this. Let's play out that bite. She was asked a specific question by my colleague Pallavi Ghosh, and this is what the finance minister said.
There were 8 states which actually said that we want something called the state level GST on products like alcohol, petrol and real estate. Was this even discussed at the GST meeting today? And second is that they are all talking, I'm sorry to use that word, but revenue loss. 15,000 crore revenue loss is what Sitharaman said. I know there are states like Karnataka and Kerala who insisted on that, and I think that is why your meeting was delayed. How do you want to actually address that? Because many of them are also facing problems, like they're talking about floods. And finally, when you are talking about a GST restructuring, was the tariff turmoil with America an important consideration?
The tariff turmoil is not a matter which influenced the GST reform, because we've been at it now for more than 1.5 years. Some group of ministers was working on rate rationalization. Some other group of ministers a bit later was working on insurance, and so on. And compensation cess was a reality, that it is going to end the moment you paid back the loan. None of this has anything to do with the tariffs. So, no, there's nothing to do with the tariffs at all. One. Second, you were talking...
Finance Minister there saying it has nothing to do with the tariffs at all. It had been going on for a year and a half. It's been going on for a year and a half. The tariffs are barely 2 months old.
No. So my question to you is, why now? Why all of a sudden Nirmala Sitharaman, the government of India, comes out and says, you know what, we are going down, we are changing the rates. Why now?
This cannot be a monopoly Congress alone.
No, because of the tariffs and the Bihar elections.
Okay, Sanjeev, I want to respond to that. They're saying it's because of the tariffs, and only because of the tariffs has the government done this under pressure. Okay, and Bihar elections. Okay, and then I'll go to Gautam after that. Yes, please, Sanjeev Verma.
Zaka, let's get one thing very clear. The Modi government, decided to bring in zero income tax till annual income of 12 lakh rupees, and for the salaried, till 12.75 lakh per annum, you pay zero tax. The Modi government said standard deduction will be 75,000 rupees per annum. The Modi government raised usual rebate from 2,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees. The Modi government has ushered in umpteen reforms, be it banking consolidation, be it opening up the coal sector to the private sector,
Okay.
be it reforms in the space sector, and now reforms within GST called GST 2.2. I just want to leave your audience with one thing today. Never has it happened in post-independent India's history that life insurance and health insurance have been taxed at zero. Our insurance penetration Zaka today is a little over 4%. In the United States of America, it is a little over 7%. Imagine, with 0% tax on life insurance and health insurance, India's insurance penetration rate could go up by 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times. That alone is the single biggest reason to say Prime Minister Modi
let me ask Gautam this. The Congress and the opposition are saying, it's the tariffs, it's Mr. Trump that forced the hand, that forced the GST hand, as it were. Is that the case? Politically, well, they can claim that, but is that necessarily the case? And two, Gautam, does this offset all the concerns around consumption not picking up, private investment not picking up? Now there's more money in the hands of the middle class, and hopefully they will spend. Do you see this sort of kick-starting sort of animal spirits that we've been waiting for a long time in the economy?
So, Zaka, first thing is I need to tell you I'm probably in the wrong film here. I'm not a political person, and I'm inundated with sharp politics from both the other panelists. So I'll just stick to the economics part or geopolitical part, the way I see it. I think Nirmala ji is right. There are 4 groups of ministers formed in November 21, November 23, February 2024, and last was in July 2024. To look at rate rationalization, which not only political parties, but even analysts like us used to make fun of, in the sense, a chapati in a restaurant costs so much GST, a chapati in a 5-star with air conditioning, so much, etc. So I think rate rationalization was, it was inevitable. That it has taken so long shows perhaps either that the government was a little slow out there, or trying to get a consensus was difficult, or maybe the timing. Now, it comes at a time when the Indian economy, or let's say all the economic leaders or economic thinkers, are wondering what to do with this Trump tax. So to answer in a straightforward manner, yes and no, in the sense that these groups of ministers have been there for a few years, as I just told you. But the timing, so there may not be any causality, but the correlation is stark. And I think at this moment, even if you were to do it to counter the trade tariffs, which Nirmala ji says that she did not, there's nothing wrong in it. I mean, this is an externality which needs to be managed in some way. Now, whether this will bring more money in the hands of consumers, of course it will. Things are becoming cheaper. They will get an incremental jump over the tax jump that they got during the budget. Will this revive private sector investment? I'm not so certain. Private sector doesn't invest on the basis of a GST rate. There are 50 other things. So the GST component can be one aspect of it. For instance, another aspect which I believe the government now needs to follow through is to reduce interest rates. Now that may spur some sort of private investment. But at this moment, given the uncertainty, global uncertainty, largely because of Trump tariffs, I don't think private sector likes uncertainty very much. Mm-hmm. So I think the onus of investments, the onus of growth will be on the shoulders of the government, on us, the taxpayers.
Okay.
Fine. I think by reducing taxes, Nirmala ji had sort of banked on growth, economic growth. By reducing GSTs, I think she's doing the same thing. The GST collections for 2024-25 were up 9% over the previous year and a compounding of 10% per annum. They've almost doubled over the past 4 years. Okay. So the collections have been rising. The economy has been growing. The first quarter has been great. I see no reason for the second quarter may see some turbulence, but I think we are going to be back on track. So I think she and the government in general is banking on growth. How that growth will come need not only be on the basis of GST. There are other, GST is a tinkering,
So-
but there are two reforms that need to be done. One is on compliances, the other is on labor.
Sanju Verma, GST is fine. Earlier this year there was a direct tax reform that happened up to 12 lakhs, zero income tax, now the indirect tax. But that's not what is going to spur private investment. Ultimately, you have to go back to the basics, land, labor, capital. That's what's going to spur investment. Of course, as Gautam rightly said,
Inspector Raj.
all the compliances, license Raj, ease of business. All of these are things that Mr. Modi's government has been talking for a very long time. But ultimately, this is where the rubber hits the road, when there is an adversity. And right now, we have an adversity in the form of the tariffs.
Let's get one thing very clear, that the Trump tariffs actually account for less than 0.2% of India's GDP. And don't forget, each time you start paying disproportionate weightage. Zaka, I did not heckle this.
One second, Sharma, one second. Let her finish, please. Let her finish. Yeah.
Yes. She has a bad habit of interjecting and then she'll cry victim. Let's be very clear. Trump tariffs account for less than 0.2% of India's GDP. Our annual exports are $821 billion. Our exports to the US are $87 billion. But Trump's 50% plus tariffs are on exports of only $36 billion. So let's not exaggerate the impact of Trump tariffs. Let's not forget, we had an FTA with the ASEAN that we signed in 2022. We had an FTA that we signed with Australia in 2022. We just a couple of weeks back signed an FTA with the United Kingdom. So the Trump tariffs need to be taken cognizance of, but don't give disproportionate weightage to it, is my first point.
Okay.
My second point, with no offense to Gautam, he's a very erudite person. I think interest rates actually are very low. The repo rate today is at 5.5%, the bank rate at 5.75%. But for you and me, for people who borrow for homes, for cars, for educational loans, the marginal cost of lending, the MCLR is at its lowest that it has ever been, in the region of 8
Sanjuji, I've been speaking to my banker as a home loan consumer in this country. I've been speaking to my banker for the last 3 months. RBI has reduced the rates. When will you reduce my housing loan rate? And they don't have a clue.
Zaka, let me tell you, you should tell him that, for a floating rate, it is usually the MCLR, which is 8%, and he can at best have a markup of 0.5% or 1%, which means he cannot charge you more than 9% under Congress. Home loan rates were at the rate of 14 to 15%.
Anyway, so Shama Mohammed, the point is, in the space of a year, in the space of less than 6 months actually, you have a big ticket reform as far as the income tax is concerned, the direct tax is concerned, no income tax up until 12 lakhs. And within 6 months, you now have a major reform in indirect tax. I can't think of a parallel like this that has happened certainly in the last 20, 30 years, where both on direct tax and on indirect tax, within a space of 5 or 6 months, the government has announced major reforms. You got to give them credit for that.
No, but you got announced major reforms after you put the people underwater. You see, I'm swimming and you push me down under the water. That's what they do. They push you under the water and then say, you know what, just come up. We want you to just come up. Now, Gautam was, one important point is he said very right, is a private investment is not going to go up with this. The only thing which will go up is consumption. I agree on that. Consumption is going to go up. Of course, things are going to be cheaper, so consumption is going up. But the question today is, why is our household savings gone down? Before 2014, the household savings, and now if you compare it, it is very, very down. People have no money in their pocket. Let's understand that. Then she says tariffs is what? 0.1%. What rubbish. Textiles itself is 2% of our GDP. If you don't know, and you can just come and say whatever you want.
You don't know basic mathematics.
No. So this is a problem.
You don't know basic mathematics.
I didn't interrupt. Zaka, she also said that
you don't know basic mathematics.
Okay. Let's have the closing comment. Let's finish.
You're lying on national TV.
You're
lying on national TV. I do not allow you to lie.
Okay. Yeah. Final word, please.
You cannot allow her to lie on national TV.
Okay.
What does she mean that the tariffs are going to be impacting GDP? Less than 0.2% of our GDP.
Okay. No, look, there are different estimates. Some have said 0.5%, some have said 1%. But anyway, make your substantive point, Shama Mohammed. I want to move on after this, please. Yes.
No. Let me finish my point.
Yeah.
So the important thing today is, Zaka, is that this Sarkar has always been a revenue Sarkar. They want to keep earning, but they have not helped out the poor. Now what you're
This
saying
is
is
a middle class wali
now health
sarkar.
insurance,
This is a middle class wali
Nitin Gadkari
sarkar.
said 3 years ago.
This is a middle class
This is
wali
the way I can't
sarkar.
debate.
Okay.
ये सरकार किसानों की है.
Okay, I got to wrap up. Thank you very much, Sanju Verma, Shama Mohammed, Gautam Chikarmani for joining us. Like I said, in the space of 6 months, you've had a big ticket move as far as direct taxes are concerned. Another one yesterday on indirect taxes, and therefore, hopefully, this will re-kickstart the economy in a way that there is more money in the hands of the middle class, there is greater consumption, but the bigger, larger challenges of reviving animal spirits, reviving private investment, hopefully we're moving in that direction sooner than later. I also want to go across to Professor Rajiv Kumar, he's former vice chair of the Niti Aayog. This big decision on GST 2.0, it's taken a long time coming, maybe because there was no consensus in the GST Council, all states have to come on board. The criticism that's been made is that this has come 8 years too late. It should have been rationalized a long time ago. There should have been just 2 slabs, but it's come 8 years too late. How do you respond to that?
No, this is a wonderful move. It's a very timely move, and as they say, better late than never. But nonetheless, there's also the alternate Hindi saying "Der aaye durust aaye," which means that but it is late, but nonetheless, this was what they've done is what is required. So this move will surely give a fillip to consumption, and for example, the consumer durables. What you have is like the air conditioners, washing machines, etc., would demand had become very weak. Will get a fillip because the GST rates have been brought down from 18 to 12%. And then the lot of essentials which have now been put to zero, which is I think a very good idea for health and insurance and things. They'll become far more affordable. So all these are good steps and in the right direction. As you said, they should have happened before, but nonetheless, the fact they've happened is a good sign. And the effect will not be confined only to consumption.
Okay.
Because from there, it should have its multiplier effect on investment, expanding capacities, and therefore on economic growth.
I'm curious to know your thoughts, Professor, on, obviously, one of the mitigating factors is the revenue loss that the states and the centre will have to face. Yesterday, I think the Revenue Secretary said, as per 23-24 figures, if I remember from the press conference, as per 23-24 figures, the calculation that they have arrived at is around 48,000 crores. And he said that is not as much as the monies that they are hoping to put in the hands of the Indian consumer. How will this revenue loss be compensated for, both for the centre and obviously more concernedly for the states?
No, I think they will, because the competition is quite strong in the economy, and I think all the producers are wanting to ramp up their top line and wanting to ramp up their total revenues and not make the extra profit which they might otherwise, if they don't pass it on, they might make, because I think they realize, and I think that in the long run, and for them, ramping up the top line and ramping up sales is far more important than to make an extra buck on the unit profit, which is what they'll get if they don't pass on the GST. So I think this will happen, and it'll be widespread. It'll happen across the board, and so that would mean that the prices will come down and they'll become more affordable. And by the way, the other part that we should note is about the sin tax.
Yeah,
I think it's a very good idea to have that 40% GST on products that you don't want to be consumed in the economy. And I'm happy to see that several sort of addictive and if you like, the non-addictive but harmful products have been put in that category.
But tell me, as a final question, this whole business of rate rationalization in GST, how much of it is because of the volatility, the uncertainty triggered by Donald Trump and the US tariffs, 50%, which have been imposed on India? Do you think that this GST rate rationalization and as a result, the monies that will be put in the hands of the consumer will sort of absorb some of that shock? Because eventually this is going to have a big impact on the exports. So the shock on the exports, can that be mitigated? Can that be absorbed by the GST cuts?
No, for both, actually, because this reform, the GST rationalization, simplification, was, as you said yourself, long in the making, and this has come because the weakness in consumption was noticed and had been noticeable for a while. And India is a consumption-driven economy. About 58% of our GDP comes out of consumption. So I think this will the driving force there was the domestic consumption weakness and the measure to boost it. And I think this is what its impact will be, and which is the right way to do, right thing to do. On whether it will help in the tariff thing,
Tariffs, yeah.
I'm afraid not, because that's really a matter of access to the American market. And these GST cuts, if they will reduce the cost of production, it'll be marginal.
Okay.
And it won't take care of that 50% extra tariff that has been imposed. And for those, I think to neutralize those, you need quite independent and robust measures.
All right.
To neutralize that and help the exporters continue their access to the US market.
Professor Rajiv Kumar, we'll leave it at that, former VC of the Niti Aayog, with his thoughts on what this GST 2.0 will likely do for the economy, for the consumers. One area which has been a point of concern, it had been talked about for over a year now, was about healthcare premiums, medical insurance, life insurance, etc. Sanjeev Bajaj is the chairman and Managing Director of Bajaj FinServ, also CII Reforms Committee. Thanks very much, Mr. Bajaj, for speaking with us. So, first of all, the broad picture, the big 35,000 feet view, the move to cut these GST rates. Effectively, now there are two rates, 5% and 18%. The growing concern was that private consumption had slowed down. People were not buying fast-moving consumer goods, particularly middle class, lower middle class India was not spending as much. Do you think with these moves by the government and by the GST Council, it will put more money in the hands of the consumer and therefore it will spur consumption as we count down to the festive season?
It should definitely do that, and for multiple reasons. One, very clearly, it provides a big boost to households, increasing their purchasing power because cost prices will come down on a wide variety of items that they end up buying. If you think about the rural economy, the GST cut that's there, whether on farm equipment, fertilizers, and machinery, again reduces their agricultural input costs. So that should benefit as well. In addition, for households, if you see the cut on health and life insurance, again will save them some money and hopefully spread both of these important protection covers for individuals. There's also, as we know, GST cuts across a large number of MSME, SME sectors, whether handicrafts, textiles, stone products. So this should again benefit millions of workers. So when you look at this overall, because the cuts are widespread, as we know, this should have a significant impact.
But I do want to ask you, though, about insurance, particularly on health insurance. Life insurance has now been reduced to zero. And you know about this. There was this concern about high premiums because of GST, particularly on senior citizens, vulnerable populations. Now that that's been reduced to zero, do you see this encouraging people not just to get insured? We have a very low insurance penetration rate in this country, but also things like defaults on premiums, etc. Do you reckon that that would come down?
It will definitely cut premiums on both health and life insurance. How much, we have to calculate that and see, because there has to be net of the input tax credit, which will no longer be available, but it will still be, I believe, a significant amount. Yes, this makes a very big difference the minute you go to the middle class and the lower middle class. And we are hopeful that this ends up spreading insurance to a much greater cross-section of Indian society.
But on that count itself, some insurers, and I'm sure you've had this conversation amongst other participants in the industry, some insurers have expressed concerns around losing of the input tax credit, as you said. And as a result of that, insurance companies could lose a lot of their revenues, if not profits. What is your sort of vantage view on this? Would the offset in the cut of GST to zero now, would that get sort of affected or mitigated because of the input tax credit that insurers are set to lose?
So typically, input tax credit would have been 5, 6, 7% or so. And as I said, actual numbers are being calculated, so don't hold me to those, but that's the kind of range. But there is still, from 18% going down to zero, there is still going to be a significant reduction that will get passed on to people. And look at it this way, some of it, it's a very competitive market. So there will be some adjustment on pricing, there'll be competitive pressures, there'll be efficiencies that will come up. Important thing is going forward from a policyholder point of view, there is no GST. So what you will see is competitive forces pricing these products, but it will be to the benefit of policyholders.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj, Chairman and Managing Director of Bajaj Finserv, thank you very much for joining us. I want to go across to Ms. Sunita Reddy. She's Managing Director of Apollo Hospitals, one of India's leading hospital chains. Ma'am, thank you very much for speaking with us. I want to first talk about, some of these life-saving drugs, cancer treatment drugs, for which GST has now been reduced to zero. This is something that industry had been calling for. How much of an impact will this have on the healthcare industry, particularly these life-saving drugs? And also for generic drugs, I believe it's been brought down now to 5%.
Yes, this will have a significant impact on healthcare, and I think that this is good both for the patient as well as for the industry, because to have GST cut to zero on life saving will enable us to make it also more cheaper for the patient. Having said that, this on the whole, the benefits given to not just life saving but also for others, I believe will be significant. I'm not able to come out with margins at this time, but definitely very attractive for patients and therefore for hospitals. At hospitals, we look at how many more people can we treat. So having made this more accessible in terms of cost is important for us. And I think that it will have an impact for the sector as well as for the patient. This is just, you're talking about medicines, but also on consumables, disposables, bandages. It's been brought down from 12 to 5%. On the whole, from looking at it from a very OPEX point of view, this is a saving. And more importantly, from a CAPEX point of view also, there will be a saving. Hospitals like ours are building out greenfield hospital beds. We're adding about 4. And the cost of construction per bed should reduce because of the GST reduction in bricks, in cement, in granite, as well as marble. This will certainly bring down the cost of construction and lead to saving. And I think it's beneficial for the growth of the industry.
One concern in the run-up to yesterday's meeting, and this had been talked about for I think over a year now, was on health insurance premiums, whether it's individual premiums, group premiums, family floater plans, etc. So that has also been addressed yesterday, particularly for vulnerable sections, senior citizens, etc. Paying 18% GST on health insurance premiums had become quite a pinch on their pockets. That's now again been completely done away with. What sort of knock-on effect do you think that will have on on the industry and also on people's affordability to get high-class treatment?
No, this makes it far more affordable. So there's no second guessing that this is a very important move, because even from an insurance industry perspective, if you look at what was done in the budget earlier, it announced 2 significant things: the lowering of tax rate, coupled with the reduction of GST on so many of the healthcare consumables, medicine, I think will really spur consumption. The second is 100% FDI into insurance. and zero GST should spur consumption for insurance policies across the board. And that's really important, that we look at it not just in terms of senior citizens, but for insurance companies to have a larger pool and to have FDI into insurance capital to be able to look at to look at larger volumes. That's really the net impact that is going to benefit all parts of the value chain in the healthcare industry.
Insurance companies had been saying that one of the things that they could claim in the earlier GST rates was this input credit. Now that goes away because it's 0%. There is no GST effectively on health insurance premiums. Do you think that would be something that would affect the industry?
Yeah, I think that it should be, I would think it's a short-term impact, and that it would have been easier for them if they had got a 5% GST, because there is an input credit that we also struggle with because we are negative. So it is a cost to the industry, the inputs. But having said that, I'm sure that they will come out with a viable solution, because they will have larger pools, they'll have larger volumes, and that's really how insurance has grown overseas as well.
All right.
That you need to have sizable populations that are covered with insurance,
Okay.
both young and old.
Dr. Sunita Reddy, as always, a pleasure speaking with you, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us on CNN News 18. So the Trump tariffs are very much on full swing as far as India is concerned. India is one of two countries that has a maximum 50% tariffs, 25% reciprocal and 25% oil tariffs that have been imposed. But when the Trade Minister, the Commerce Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, sat down with News 18 Network Editor-in-Chief Rahul Joshi, who asked him about how India plans to deal with the Trump tariffs, he seemed to take a very measured tone, saying that the India-US relationship has far greater depth and far greater breadth, as a result of which he doesn't want to make any loose statements. He also doesn't take seriously the rather loose statements being made by some of the aides of Mr. Trump in the White House, whether it's Navarro or Besant. He says that there is far more structurally that binds India and the United States together, and that this is a temporary pain, and that he's hopeful that by November, which was the initial deadline that was set, by fall, that India and the United States can arrive at a trade agreement. Let's listen in to that exclusive interview. Piyush Goyal, the Commerce Minister, sat down with News 18 Editor-in-Chief Rahul Joshi.
Let me rewind a little bit and come to what you've been dealing with, and you've been at the center of all of it. Till about July 6th or 7th, things seem to be going fine with in our negotiations with the US. Then in a matter of weeks, we had a tariff of 25%. Then another 25% on top of that. What went wrong in these few weeks?
Well, I think the US-India relationship is one of the most consequential relationships on the globe today. We are two very large democracies. We believe in the rule of law. We are allies and friends for long. We have had certain blips, like we had the sanctions post the nuclear tests in 1998.
Yes.
I look at this only as one more situation which will pass as there's a deeper understanding of the reality of the situation. And I'm very confident this relationship will only strengthen in the years to come.
And how soon do you expect things to resolve?
It could happen soon enough. It may take some time. Irrespective, we will continue to be friends. We will continue to be engaged with the United States. And I'm sure we will continue to have greater economic relationships, defense relationships, greater interest in a safe, fair and secure Indo-Pacific. In some sense, it's a very multi-dimensional relationship where we contribute to each other's economies in different dimensions, and will continue to do so.
It's comforting to hear these words from you, and we also picked up that you said somewhere that things could happen as soon as November. Is that a correct?
Well, if you recall, when Prime Minister Modi and Honorable President Donald Trump met in February, they had tasked the two teams to conclude the first tranche of a bilateral trade agreement by fall of 25, which is about November 2025. And I'm sure we will continue to be engaged to try and find solutions to reach that outcome. If at all it's give and take a few days, a few weeks, a few months, in a nation's history, such small periods will not define long-term objectives and goals.
I think what surprised and even shocked some people was the erratic and incendiary language that was used by, some of the officials of the Trump administration, calling it Modi's war or, a laundromat of Kremlin. I mean, how do you react to this? I mean, are conciliatory noises coming from the other side now?
I think there could be either some misunderstandings or some personal opinions that may be reflected in that. I do not think that deters the US and India from continuing to maintain a strategic alliance and partnership. Our friendship is far stronger than a few comments that may be made by a few people.
So President Trump has recently said that, India has offered to cut tariffs to zero and time is running out. What do you say to that? Do you agree with... I
never negotiate such agreements and free trade deals with the media. We negotiate behind closed doors, and once the negotiations are complete, we'll certainly come back to you.
Okay. So what are the red lines? Which are the no-go areas for you? Things that we will not compromise on.
I think any issue that can hurt national interests, that can hurt the interests of our farmers, our fishermen, our MSME industry, issues which are sensitive with religious sensitivity, those would be broadly the issues where India would need a more understanding when we finalize the framework of our agreement, and we will never compromise on the interests of our farmers, our fishermen, our MSMEs, or our religious sensitivities.
Okay, thank you. A US court has recently ruled that President Trump has no authority to impose tariffs, including on India. How would that impact our talks going forward?
Those are internal processes, legal processes in the US, and will be sorted out by the US government. We have no role to play in that. But ours is an effort to reach a far more sustaining and long-term, fair, equitable and mutually beneficial agreement and partnership, and we continue to be focused on that.
So the minister there is still hopeful of an interim trade deal with the United States by November. Talking about the United States, the US military struck a small boat accused of smuggling drugs out of Venezuela. This is a significant escalation in tensions between the two countries since the Trump administration has repeatedly accused Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of orchestrating transnational drug gang activity. In fact, the Trump administration has called him the leader of a narco-terrorist ring. But is this an attempt at regime change by the United States? Here's a deep dive. US President Donald Trump said that the United States had carried out a strike against a boat carrying drugs and killed 11 terrorists off the coast of Venezuela. This was part of Trump's war against Venezuelan drug cartels, which he has blamed for smuggling fentanyl into the United States. But Trump offered very few other specifics about the American strike during his news conference at the White House. But later he posted more details about the American attack on Truth Social.
Can you give us a sense of what the U.S. policy or what you're trying to achieve with the aircraft carriers, or the boats, I should say, in near Venezuela, and also the boat that you mentioned yesterday where 11 people were killed? What was found on that boat, and why were the men killed instead of taken into
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people. And everybody fully understands that. In fact, you see it. You see the bags of drugs all over the boat. And they were hit, obviously. They won't be doing it again. And I think a lot of other people won't be doing it again when they watch that tape.
Trump confirmed that US military forces had conducted a kinetic surgical strike against positively identified terrorists belonging to the Tren de Aragua narco group. Tren de Aragua is identified as a foreign terrorist organization by the US government. Trump also said that the strike occurred while the terrorists were out at sea in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics which were headed to the United States. He also confirmed that no American troops were harmed in the operation. Trump's post on social media also had an accompanying video of what appeared to be a speedboat which was cutting through the water with a number of people on board, and then suddenly an explosion appears to blow up the boat. It's not clear exactly which weapon was used to blow up the boat. Special operations aircraft, either an attack helicopter or an MQ-9 Reaper drone, likely carried out the attack on Tuesday morning against a 4-engine speedboat that was loaded with drugs. US surveillance aircraft and other sensors had been monitoring the drug cartel's maritime traffic for weeks before the strike. America had even dispatched some special strike carrier groups to Venezuelan waters. But the strike is an astonishing departure from the traditional drug interception efforts. In the past, American authorities focused on seizing drugs and identifying suspects to build a criminal case against them. The aim was not to shoot and kill. This time was different. This action comes amid a major buildup of US naval forces outside Venezuela's waters. The Trump administration has also stepped up its belligerent rhetoric about fighting drug cartels. Trump even labeled Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, a terrorist cartel leader.
And it'll happen again. Maybe it's happening right now, I don't know. But the point is, the President of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
However, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the vessel's destination was not the United States, it was probably Trinidad or any other country in the Caribbean. Trump had in fact claimed that the drug boat was headed to America. Trump signed a secret directive back in July instructing the Pentagon to use military force against some Latin American drug cartels. His administration has labeled some of these cartels as terrorist organizations. And around the same time, Trump also declared a Venezuelan criminal group called the Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization and Nicolas Maduro as its terrorist narco leader. He also called Maduro's government illegitimate. Since then, the Pentagon has moved US naval assets, including warships, into the southern Caribbean Sea. In response, Maduro has said that he was deploying more than 4 million militiamen and women and vowed to defend Venezuela's seas, skies, and land from any form of incursion. Thanks for watching Brass Tacks from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
In a landmark GST reform effective September 22nd, the government has simplified tax slabs to just two, 5% and 18%. It eases the financial burden on consumers as far as everyday goods, everyday needs are concerned. Essential items like hair oil, shampoo, dairy products, snacks, several of your medical devices will now attract only 5%. Critical medicines and health insurance are completely exempt of GST. This move is being hailed as a gift to the common man, especially in the run-up to the festival season. Farmers, women, youth, MSMEs, the middle class, all will now get a massive relief when this comes into effect on the first day of Navratri. It's an auspicious beginning as per the government as far as GST 2.0 goes. Prime Minister Modi has called this next generation GST reform. It's designed to boost spending and economic growth as well. In fact, the economy is projected to gain about 48,000 crore rupees from the renewed and reformed GST.
Common man and middle class items there is a complete reduction. Reduction from 18 or from 12 to 5%. I list out those items, all of whom have come to 5% from either 18 or from 12. Reduction of GST from 5% to nil. 5 से 0 में जाने वाले items indicate कर रहा हूँ. Ultra high temperature milk, the UHT milk, chena or paneer, all the Indian breads will see nil rate. So roti किसी के ऊपर भी, chapati or roti or paratha or whatever it is, they all come to nil. Reduction of GST from 12% or from 18% to 5%. इसमें फूड आइटम्स बहुत सारे हैं, नमकीन से भुजिया है, सॉसेस है, पास्ता है, इंस्टेंट नूडल्स है. Exemption of GST on all individual health insurance policies, including family floater policies and policies for senior citizen, and reinsurance thereof to make insurance affordable for the common man and increase the insurance coverage in the country.
Yesterday's GST reforms are a step in the direction of ensuring an Atmanirbhar Bharat, an India which is self-sufficient, self-reliant, an India whose supply chains are self-reliant, an India that cares for every Indian. 140 crore Indians coming together with the collective resolve to make India Viksit Bharat by 2047, a developed and prosperous nation where everybody gets opportunity, where everybody becomes a participant of India's inclusive and sustainable growth story.
It's a matter of great joy for all of us that Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has decided to reduce the GST rates for practically everything that is used in the lives of our middle class families and our low income families. Starting from food items to items which are used in day-to-day life, to students, items which are required by our students, to the items which are used in our homes, whether it is consumer electronics, small cars, scooters, everything is now going to see a lower GST rate.
कटाई, थ्रैशिंग के उपकरण आदि पर भी टैक्स को काफ़ी घटा दिया गया है. इससे कृषि से आधारित अर्थव्यवस्था को एक नई मजबूती मिलेगी. घर के निर्माण में काम में आने वाली सामग्रियों को पर भी टैक्स दरों में कम कर दिया गया है. इससे आम नागरिकों पर वित्तीय बोझ तो कम होगा, साथ ही देश की अर्थव्यवस्था भी मजबूत होगी. यूपीए सरकार जीएसटी लागू ही नहीं कर पाई थी क्योंकि राज्यों को तब की कांग्रेस सरकार पर भरोसा ही नहीं था. उल्टे कांग्रेस सरकार वैट के माध्यम से गरीब जनता और व्यापारियों पर डाके डालती, बड़े पैमाने पर टैक्स चोरी को भी गुंजाइश बनी रहती थी.
Now, what exactly are the key takeaways as far as GST 2.0 goes? There were 4 slabs initially. Now there are only going to be 2 slabs for most items, which is 5% and 18%. Of course, there is a 40% much higher tax on what the government has called sin goods. The GST Council has done away with the 12 and 28% GST tax slabs altogether. This 40% tax on sin goods will apply to more expensive goods like helicopters, like yachts. Some cigars will also be under this. Tobacco and cigarettes will also be included under what the government terms are as sin goods. As far as the health sector goes, there is a big relief because there is no GST anymore on life and health insurance premiums. Several life-saving drugs also now are completely exempt from GST. In fact, the new regime is going to be kicking off from September 22nd, which is the first day of Navratri, which is believed to be an auspicious period. Also, the timing of it, given that it just about begins the festival season, first with Navratri, then Dussehra, and of course Diwali, that will follow the month after. So how exactly does this help the Aam Aadmi, the consumer, you and I? How does it help our daily needs?
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
In a landmark GST reform effective September 22nd, the government has simplified tax slabs to just two, 5% and 18%. It eases the financial burden on consumers as far as everyday goods, everyday needs are concerned. Essential items like hair oil, shampoo, dairy products, snacks, several of your medical devices will now attract only 5%. Critical medicines and health insurance are completely exempt of GST. This move is being hailed as a gift to the common man, especially in the run-up to the festival season. Farmers, women, youth, MSMEs, the middle class, all will now get a massive relief when this comes into effect on the first day of Navratri. It's an auspicious beginning as per the government as far as GST 2.0 goes.
In a News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions.
Viewers, we're live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, brought to you by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions.